Alex Answer here with another very important addition to the Archon podcast series. I'm rather excited about this particular podcast, and my voice feels a little bit better. I've got a fresh cup of coffee here. The sun is very strong at the moment. Clear skies, and solar panels are doing good. Got the batteries charging. Got the last podcast compressing. I'm appreciating some of the positive comments that are coming in. I appreciate the women that are listening with an open mind in order to truly understand what is in my mind. And I want to talk more about this concept of large cities. Being energy harvesting centers. I've used this terminology for years, and I want to get more colorful in my description of these dense population centers, what's going on with the Archons, and what's going on with, what one could say is possessions of collective groups of people that are along the same line of thought. Because I do believe there are forms of mind control taking place that are not so easily detectable. That there are forms of mind control that are occurring not necessarily through the internet or through the radio or through the TV, subliminal or otherwise. That there are other forms of mind control that could be affecting human beings that's in fact not actually coming from the physical domain. I'm going to speak in this podcast a little bit more about how men are controlled by the archonic realms in society, in particular with regards to violence, organized crime, certain kinds of lifestyles, what is called pit fighting. Terminologies do change over the epochs of time. And I'm going to get really specific as to what I'm talking about. But these dense population centers are social engineering centers. Places like Portland, we're seeing the whole society change. The men and the women. And these larger cities come loaded with smart meters and this grid, this artificial grid, that is impacting our consciousness, affecting our sleep, directly affecting the production of melatonin. The amount of melatonin that is produced in the body needs to be at a certain amount or we become unhealthy. So certain levels of sickness could leave us vulnerable to Archon mind hijack. When you're mixing the organic technology that they already have and know about how to interfere with human consciousness, how to invade dreams, and how to control people, even control relationships, as we talked about, by invading consciousness when they're able to lower someone's frequency through manipulating their own free will, duping someone into relinquishing their sovereignty. When you add technology to it, when you add cell phones to it, when you add all these other things to it, cell phone towers, something is changing within that electromagnetic spectrum. And so there are terminologies you can become familiar with, like electromagnetic pollution. Not just something that Alex Answer is saying, but something that you can go and look up. And if you have the patience to learn about smart meters in a more elaborate or deeper way than and I've only looked at so much of it because it is alarming. And I did notice, and I spoke about a major shift in energy in Portland that seemed to have changed people, even people that I knew years earlier, that I was people that I was a friend of, or people that were my friends. I noticed changes in their energy field from, remember I was here in Colorado before, and then I went back to Portland. And some of those same people, they seemed a lot weaker. Like their spirit was suppressed. Now, I know a lot of people look at things like fluoride in the water as the sole issue for the kind of that dumbing down. But one of the most overlooked is electromagnetic pollution coming through more things than I could possibly list. So when we talk about cell phone towers and smart meters, we're talking about the predominant. Like, holy crap, that shit is everywhere. And that shit is impacting people's aura, magnetic field. And it can be scientifically proven that we do have magnetic fields, not only around our living bodies, but inorganic objects. Now, they may have different strengths, but studies have been done for a long time to detect magnetic fields around things. But a human magnetic field is far stronger than, say, the magnetic field of a rock on the ground. And the health of the magnetic field of the human body is important. If the human magnetic field is weakened, I do believe someone can become a target. They can come under attack. They can, their energy, their prana, their chi, could just start leaching out of their body through some hole in their unhealthy magnetic field. It could be caused by smoking. I know that through experience with going on and off cigarettes, I've learned about my own magnetic field strength, as well as how certain emotions and thoughts and actions can impact that field around our body. You know, once somebody becomes aware that they have a field around their body, and they become sensitive enough to feel, I think a lot of us are constantly responding to senses that we're picking up on, that our aura's picking up on. But if someone doesn't know that that's the case, you know, it can lead to a lot of confusion. And this is a very confused planet. So in these cities, these natural organic magnetic fields are interacting with unnatural, inorganic magnetic fields that are artificially produced. In addition to that, as a lot of you already know, people are listening to music at a frequency that is out of balance with nature, that is out of balance with where natural sound should actually be. And in cities, the human body is being exposed to sounds and frequencies, many unnatural, that it's throwing off our own internal biological clock. You know, it toys with the body, the physical senses, the hormones. And then people wonder why we have a society of people that seem increasingly addicted to drugs or pharmaceuticals, especially women in our society. And so, speaking now to the idea of living in a controlled society where men, for example, don't have a normal rite of passage, that are living in this unnatural world, just like the women, men that are easily duped into joining gangs and wreaking havoc and violence upon other men, because these men become possessed at some point, in my opinion. And there are periods that I think we've seen in our history where the men, a certain percentage of the men, were going absolutely ape shit with war psychosis, and also usually during these solar flare periods or peaks of more solar flares, which seems to have a certain effect on the human body. You know, there's so much focus on women in the menstrual cycle and little to no research done on the part of humanity on how men and women, but men in particular, are affected by the sun and are duped into wars that lead to people being slaughtered and bad karma, I would say, even for the country that those men came from. Okay, so without getting too deep, you know, in these energy harvesting centers that are flourishing centers for organized crime, prostitution, gambling, other vices. So you have your loan sharks in this world of money. Here, I'll loan you some money so you can, you know, do something in this physical world. But you better give me the money back or I'll break your thumbs, you son of a bitch. And then all the players that learn how to play this game, that enjoy the game of kicking in a door, whether they're a cop or whether they're a gangster, throwing somebody up against the wall and boom, hitting him so hard he pukes. Actually knowing people that almost seem to get off on discussing violence, on kicking in doors, and literally, listen to me, people getting off on telling stories about nailing a man, crucifixion style, to the floor of his living room, and then setting the living room on fire. Okay, when you're told a story like that and someone's salivating, you hear about also the other things that maybe people have done to other people as they brag about it. And then you hear other stories in the news about the evil that man does. And then I've heard stories about certain people that for a period of time they were almost untouchable. You know, for a period when they were serving some form of the Archonic system. Breaking legs, breaking heads. Till one day, they directed that same power of destruction given to them by the Archons. And their fury was turned to another aspect of the Archon program. And like another major asset of the Archons. Like, say, a drug running operation, for example. You know, where people are selling crack cocaine. Obviously, a major crack cocaine operation is going to be an asset of the Archonic realm. That's fucking people up, that's turning women into prostitutes, that's turning men into killers. So I was told a story at one point about this person that, in a way, was serving the Archonic system by breaking heads and breaking legs, to then going after a prized jewel, you could say, of the Archonic system, a crack house, and taking out some major energy harvesters for the Archons. These Crips, these rolling 60s of the mid-80s that were in charge of that crack house. All of a sudden, this person that for years had served the Archonic system was getting the smackdown. And did a period of time in prison. Of all the things this person did for the Archons in the Archon world of leg breaking and collecting and strong arm whatever, something out of a Goodfellas movie. When the punishment came, it came after he went off something clearly probably controlled by the Archons or other entities invested in human suffering. I think about this story, this potential reality. I speculate. And I can see periods where men are duped into serving the Archonic system, whether they're a cop or a gangster or something else, because for a period they're getting a lot of energy from the Archons. They're getting the love of women. Okay, they're getting laid. Something is happening to women. They're all of a sudden they don't understand why their vaginas are getting so wet, and they can't control this lust for this man. What's happening is that man is being rewarded by the Archons of this world that are able to make certain things happen. You know what I mean? Make a phone call happen. Make one single phone call. And get that person, get that male to relinquish his sovereignty. Other ways the Archons pay the man back. He's super strong. Nobody can stop him. He terrifies his opponents. He has the look of death in his eyes. His opponents are terrified when they see him angry. See, this is all hallmarks of an Archonic warrior spirit that's able to enter the Dark Warrior male, who's not using his God-given talents at Mortal Kombat to protect, but instead is another modern-day mercenary working for those with the power, working for those that are serving the Archonic system. Okay, so there are many men that have become prostitutes in this dimension. Not in a sexual sense, but they are serving the armies of gold. or those that collect gold and seek, I say that metaphorically. But those that are reaching for the golden ring. Something also said about many residents of Dallas, Texas. The $30,000 millionaire pretending to be the 30,000 year salary person acting like they're a millionaire or somebody that they're not. Someone that's playing the game. And I noticed that Dallas, in the year I was living there, was very much, to take the attention away from Portland for a minute and cite another major city. That's when I really started to investigate Archons in general and the idea of energy harvesting centers, from the layout of Dallas, Texas, not to mention, understand the layout of Washington, D.C., but Dallas, Texas, when you look at Dallas and Fort Worth, when you look at the map of those two places, take a look on the internet. It's a large penis. Testicles, as well as penis. Testicles on the side of Fort Worth, pointing the tip, the head of the penis, at actually a neighborhood like in West Dallas, or the West Village area. Ironically, a place I was living at during that period of time, where I felt that I was living in a part of town that was infested with Archons. I came to believe that and perceive that. And I took some pictures in the summer of 2012. And some of the pictures that I took randomly this was also during a geomagnetic storm, which I believe that events like that caused by the sun link our human world or human matrix to the true spiritual world of the other side and all that it contains at times, depending on the intensity of the interaction, the overlap between the dimensions. But I took some pictures that shocked me. It looked like something out of Hellraiser, and pyramids in the sky, and things that looked like they were harvesting balls of energy. And feeling that I was in a city of negativity, of violence, not only male violence, but on the female equivalent to selling the sexuality, the prostitution industry, the sex industry, the strip clubs. So perverted violence and sex together, that's a lot of energy. That seems to be like a pure food source for these Archons. And it's an invertation, and it's a perversion of that which is holy, or that which is right, or that which is clean. So there's sexuality that has a clean aspect to it, that has a love, healing vibration to it, that is based on physical affection for another human being. And sexual affection for another human being based on the content of their soul, engaging in an act that can procreate a child based in love with an intention of making the world a better place. That's a very different frequency than the frequency of strip clubs with drug-addled strippers that are not liberated themselves sexually, that are obviously in pain. In Dallas, by the way, men can actually walk up and just kind of slap a girl in the ass or put the dollar down there. And it's actually very creepy to watch. And I did watch it a few times because I wanted to see the cultural differences in the strip clubs between Portland and Dallas. And Dallas was horrifying. And no doubt I drew negativity to myself by even entering those places out of curiosity. And I went through, that's how I really went through, I guess I can tell part of the story another time in depth. But I really went through a massive learning curve through some of the experiences that I chose to have while in Dallas. And I went through a lot of pain. And I had some deep, dark moments that have basically never been shared. Talk about feeling really lonely in a very large, super dark city. Even when I had an apartment, that's when I realized just simply having an apartment in the city doesn't make one happy. Because I remember what it felt like to have that apartment. And it was about $700 a month at the time, and I was able to afford it due to that job I was doing for that video company that I was there in Dallas for a year to do. September 2011 to September 2012. And the apartment never made me happy. There was something very strange about that area, the West Village, as they call it. And on the map again, it's like kind of like at the tip of this penis, which is basically what is manifested when you look at the map that connects Fort Worth to Dallas. And there's that energy of greed, of sexual perversion, of material worship. But genetically, the women that live there, and of course we can appear different based on where we are on the planet, based on the color, the quality of the water that we're drinking, quality of the air, and effect of the sun, how much sun is out. That affects how much of a tan we have. And even though there's a lot of issues with the women in Portland, generally they were far more attractive, I found. Whatever was going on in Dallas with the women in the general population, it almost seems like their genetics are being manipulated even more. And Dallas is an area where there is fluoride in the water. And whether there's more or less of a geoengineering problem, I would probably guess more. But you have a lot of pollution issues down in that area. And you also, when you, in the surrounding areas of Dallas, you have more men with heart problems. So through the water quality, and some suggest health effects results of fracking, I noticed more sick people, more people drinking soda, more people drinking shit alcohol, and what seemed to be more crazy materialistic women, uglier houses, and people basically living in a form of shit that they thought was wealth or think is wealth. So in a way, Dallas and the surrounding area is an armpit and is really devoid of spirit or spiritual energy. And so Dallas appeared to me to be an Archon city. I saw the unconscious men, very few men, and a lot of people get down on Ron Paul because he doesn't meet some of their own political expectations. The best thing about the whole Ron Paul movement wasn't Ron Paul. It was me actually meeting decent guys out there that are still my friends today that basically believe in freedom and liberty. People may have rallied around a certain flag and in the past certain talk show hosts, but really it's just a rallying point. What's important is for people to find each other through social media, make friends, and maybe be partners in crime, so to speak, in terms of going off grid and living in freedom in that sense. A lot of us really should be working together instead of against each other. So for me, the cities are about people working against each other. You know, who can outbid the other for rent? Because if no one's paying that rent, that price, you have to lower the price. Or you get really crazy and you market a city like Portland and you bring people in from other places. Again, another reason why Portland's gotten really crazy, the housing market. Because a lot of the renters are coming from somewhere else. So because of the displacement now taking place in cities, you have basically, you have a pollution problem of pain, suffering, and misery. In addition, I talked in some of my videos about the history in Portland, to go back to Portland as an example, as we talk about energy harvesting. As I try to make this clear, what I think is truly happening and has been happening. When you have areas where you have like a continuation of sex trafficking and drug addiction and things like that, like Portland has, where even you can even pinpoint to certain areas like Old Town Chinatown 150 years ago, men were being misled into giving up their own sovereignty. Get this. Through alcohol, through what was also called spirits. And they would sign off their own sovereignty, and they would wake up officially a slave on a ship bound for sea. They would literally be shanghaied. Now, in some cases, women and men, like men that would work as bouncers in some of the clubs, would kick a guy down the stairs that drank too much, and he would be forcefully kidnapped. So there's different ways in which a man would be duped into giving up his own sovereignty. And usually it came about from him being intoxicated by the spirits, i.e. alcohol, or through his own sexuality. You know, the first industry that women were involved in Portland was prostitution. What's called what? And why is it called that? Why is it called the oldest profession? Unless it's been wired into us. As human beings, the biological computer, with spirits being trapped in these carbon copy bodies, clone bodies. Bodies that have been cloned, bodies that have been programmed, bodies that have been designed to be their slave or a master. The John or the prostitute. As we see most all relationships today, based on the basic concepts of prostitution, of selling your sexuality. as we look at the world today of men selling themselves as men being prostitutes, not always in a sexual sense, but in a physical sense, maybe sometimes for the military, to be a mercenary, to be a servant of the Archons, to actually hurt other people, like a male whore, in order for that male to get his. See, this is really about understanding how cities have been conducive to those energies that wants to make the slave out of both the male and the female. Environments that lead both the male and female to prostitute their own morals and integrity. And so we see the rise of the archetype of the human earth female sex slave. And we see the archetype of the earth male, either super soldier, gangster, criminal, thug, bully, dominator, and every other description in between that we can use to describe the other. And we can see this archetype growing in society, looking at it from the macro perspective, which is on the world stage, what's being promoted in the media, what's being promoted in movies, what's being promoted in video games, what we can find on the internet, what we can find in other countries, what we can see in terms of large fads. We can see men and women emulating these archetypes of the dark feminine and dark masculine. And then we can trace from the macrocosm to the microcosm. And so that's why we examine cities like Portland, Oregon, a city very much like the current president has portrayed itself, at least the Portland media, and some people that have moved to Portland and other aspects of the media that have portrayed Portland as something that it's not. Conscious, progressive, safe, open-minded, tolerant. And in some ways, Portland has exemplified some of those things. But behind the mask, behind the deception, behind the front, behind the game that's being played with people that are believing that, say, Portland is a certain place, so they're moving there to, say, escape their problems. This is really this lie about salvation through moving or externalizing something, looking at the whole concept of the new Portlandia in almost a religious sense, better than the rest of the country and more progressive, groundbreaking. This microcosmic lie about reality and change is just an example of something greater. And introducing this point, and I've felt this way for years, there certainly has been a lot of people drawn to Portland that think that they're there to be healed by Portland, to use this as an example. That they're meant to be there for something. That they're angels or ascended masters. From Archangel Michael, as some people believe they are being visited by. And maybe there is a deity that has peaceful, positive intentions towards mankind. But are all entities going by the name of Archangel Michael, honestly, entities that mean that human being well, that human spirit well? And at this point, I don't think the answer is yes. There are far too many people that I've met in my life, women, that believe that the ascended masters have brought them to Portland to heal the land. Or are taking other cues from voices or thoughts implanted in the head, whether they think it's coming from an ascended master or whether they think that that thought is their own. And what I have seen in Portland is not a happy female population. Instead, I feel like something is feeding on their very energy by being in that city. To be perfectly clear, by being in that city, by being within that geography, by walking on that land and through those streets that are polluted with a wide variety of entities. In reality, many women in Portland have been guided, yes, by their guides, by something to stay and remain in Portland, a place that I generally believe will not be safe in the years ahead. My heart has obviously told me something very different about the future of Portland than that which has been told in spirit, allegedly, to the women that live in Portland. So it's absolutely true that one of us is absolutely batshit crazy or is misguided, because either Portland is going to become more of a progressive place, or it is actually going to be at the center of ground zero for a major disaster where public safety plummets faster than the Twin Towers in 9/11 overnight with a flip of a switch. But because we live in a society where the male with the warning is perceived to be the dominator himself, or filled with spite or negativity himself, that perhaps maybe I want these disasters to happen. Unfortunately, because of the New Age thinking in our society, these warnings to this day have gone 100% unheeded. And so there is something going on to take this conversation deeper with these cities that are harvesting energy. Because what is actually also happening is that there is a loop back mechanism, which I mentioned earlier. Men and women, when they serve the Archonic system, they can be fed energy. And that can result in a number of different manifestations. They can display signs of superhuman strength. They could display enormous sexual prowess. Maybe they're able to have an orgasm over and over and over, or have the largest ones that they've ever had in their life, maybe leading them to believe that they're developing god or goddess-like powers. In the physical world, things may happen to them to where they become millionaires overnight, to where aspects of the universe that are not of the higher are buying them off. The out-of-touch human being that's being played by remote control for their energy may think they're evolving because they're becoming, in their opinion, healthier. They may seem to have more energy. They may seem to be able to stay up later in the night and get up earlier. They have more energy. They're able to function in the system. Their left brain is A-OK. They're still powerful. They're still beautiful. They are still amazed at how their body, that at one point they used to be so much smaller in and younger in, now they are so amazed at how perky, at how perfect, at how upright the nipples are on their breasts as they contemplate. What does this truly mean now about their elevated personal status? And all the energy that is now coming into them, positive energy, reinforcing positive energy for being socially acceptable based on materialism. As they sell themselves then without even trying, by being paid for it through seeing what it can get for them on a level short term, either through men or through the workplace. Likewise, males in the matrix that are willing to be violent for others, to use their brawn or strength to serve the control structure, they will find themselves rewarded by the women that are also in that energy harvesting center, rewarded through the sexual act, which they desire on a primal, mammalian, base, you could even say reptilian level. And so rewards for bad behavior, rewards, i.e. energy that boosts them. So you have bad behavior, you have people that are drawn to certain cities to live out certain lifestyles, either in the drug world, the criminal world, the sex industry. This is actually something I was thinking about decades ago, before the large-scale conspiracy stuff on the world stage of the New World Order. When I was young, this is taking me back to the age of 18 or 19, and through my first psychedelic experience, I saw the dark grid in the version of what was going down in Portland. Sex industry, through a friend that I knew, that was involved in most of his life, mortal combat in some form, fighting other human people. I would even say obsessions with being the top dog, with being unbeatable. And dangerous he was, and learn things from him I did. But there was an energy around him and through him that was not of the positive. That was absolutely psychotic. And so I've given a lot of thought to this concept recently, that certain people that are serving the Archons for a time, be they men or be they women, they can be boosted up with energy that enables them to be almost superhuman intelligent, superhuman sexy, like beyond, like a charisma, like you walk into a room and everybody just wants to like be around that person, get that person's autograph, pay that person tribute. And I would say superhuman strength, again, to where one man walks into a room and everybody knows that one man cannot be taken down. And these people don't necessarily have that power, beauty, or intellect their whole life. There comes a point where Archons use human beings like prostitutes. And they use them as long as those human beings are feeding them lots of energy. And those human beings could be feeding those Archons lots of energy by those human beings going out and creating wreckage for other people. Men and women every day creating wreckage and emotional disturbances in other men and women. Well, we can look at unique ways in which it's being done, but it's being done on a large scale. And it's not just one group doing it. It's not just women. It's not just men. But we will pause and we will look at how each group is programmed by the system. Because if you cannot face the truth as to how it's specifically taking place, and if you are unwilling to become a better person, look inside yourself and find out how any of the things I'm saying apply in your life. Be you male or be you female. Is there any aspect of your sexuality that you have used to put a dollar sign on? Is there any aspect of your brute strength that you have ever put a dollar sign, that if someone were just to pay you, that you would just join some system and go fight said enemy? Okay, because these are core questions that I raised at the beginning of perhaps a series of other questions, but I think that they are the most important. Are people selling their sexuality to negative entities, or are they selling their protective, their God-given abilities to be strong to special interest groups that truly want to dominate the world? So we are dealing with a theme of non-participation in the system to free ourselves. It is non-participation in the system. As men and women striving to become more conscious, we look at what does that mean for us? To take man and woman out of the equation, what does it mean for you? To not feed the system unnecessarily. None of us can be perfect. There will always be that archonic interference that'll come in through someone's attitude. It'll say something as ridiculous as you're not off the grid as long as you have internet. There is no reason for anyone to say that other than to try to create a psychological interruption in the flow of positivity and to tear down something positive. In this case, we direct our attention towards the positive. What are the positive steps that we need to take to exit the matrix? There are ways in which people are doing and can do positive things within the city. And I believe that my life, in my younger years, hosting an Access television show for about 10 years, I believe that was my contribution to plant some seeds in the minds, the ears of those that normally wouldn't come across this information because they're not on the internet. They were only watching Access TV, and that's where I got my start. That's a very different audience than the audience that I'm currently speaking to on YouTube. Very different. With some of them never having access to the internet, having access to what you have access to. Some of the viewers being far older, some of the viewers watching my show years ago, they're no longer on this planet. As young as I am, I really reached a lot of people 6-7 years ago when I had my Channel 11 slot. For me, that felt like a very important role to fulfill for a period of time in the city. And in that experience, I also got to experience what it was like to all of a sudden feel that you're on some sort of a radar, to where aspects of your psyche are under attack, to where for some reason, instead of being rewarded by society, a trickle of events began after 2008 and 2009, like years of my activism was paying off in the form of now having these disturbances in my relationship with roommates, and having roommates becoming archonic and shift their personality. And for whatever reason, because wherever I lived during those years, I was using Skype several hours a day to also do a radio show with several websites that was like, we're talking about subjects that incrementally led to more energetic interference in my life. That didn't end with the roommate situation, that seemed to infect my relationship life, that seemed to infect my life at work, to the point where I became increasingly nomadic in the last several years to escape the archonic interference. And so there's a huge connection with spiritual sovereignty and going off the grid. And there is a huge overlap with other issues. You know, I don't believe women are inherently evil, and I don't believe that men are inherently evil. But I do believe that there are certain epochs and cycles that we see changes in society. I don't believe that society is consistently the same in terms of consciousness. And I don't see consciousness as something that's going in a upward trajectory like a line that you draw with some sort of a ruler. Life and energy is more cyclical. It is up and down. It's like a sine wave. So there are periods on the planet where the archonic influence is so great that the majority of a certain sex at a certain time may be in a certain mindset unless they are actually truly evolved spiritually. And that mindset could be as simple as those with the money, those that are working with the archonic system, those that are playing within the system. Those are the people out there who are going to choose to be around. The reality is the archonic system of influence hasn't been removed or raptured off the planet. And there are many people saying that's exactly what has happened, that the Greys are gone, the reptilians are gone. Well, maybe certain stories and reports of abduction have been significantly reduced since the 70s and 80s. But there are things going on within consciousness now. And there are things that we can see in terms of the current value system of today's human being and today's female. And we can note that it's in stark contrast to what we would call the true feminine or a real woman. Just like there are people that might have an association with a real man, as sexist as it might be in some cases. You know, being that a man builds something, that a man defends. You know, that a man just doesn't, bend over and take it. A real man now is kind of perverted. The preferred man is the man who's the corporate man, who goes out and bends over. So things have become perverted. So that's what I'm saying. And that's what women still, some of them still have yet to understand. That we are criticizing the warping of what is taking place within the world of women today. And the way that women are attacked and controlled by this structure. How women are hurt in other countries because women matter wherever they are on the planet. And there's this unnatural illusion of separation. I believe today, due to the mind control that women are under, which has nothing to do with demonizing women. But there is mind control taking place in many American cities that a white woman is different than an Afghan woman. That a white woman is different than a woman in Africa. That her concerns are not the concerns of that woman over there that is suffering under the conditions brought to her by the United States or NATO. No, the American white woman, for the most part, can find a way to apologize for what is taking place in those countries simply because of what she has been told in the media about this threat of radical Islam. Even those that are conspiracy aware of, quote, false flags and, quote, engineered events. I've met enough American men and women that know that 9/11 was an inside job and still fear Muslims or people with brown skin that maybe could be Muslim. I've seen this. I've experienced this. And I understand that there is an aspect of ourselves vulnerable to Archon hijack that can tell us that we are a white male, or we are a white female, or we are American, or we are Swedish, or we are Middle Eastern. We are this thing, and we identify with this thing. And being tapped in with technology, being tapped in with media, whatever label you identify with, let's say you identify with you are a black male, then you are a black male that is under attack. Thus you must defend. Now is the time. Rise, says Farrakhan. Identify with your hands up, don't shoot victim self, and make whitey pay. You see, these archonic, racist programs are out there. And they've got a program for every single human being. Okay, so let's go back to cities. What are cities? Cities are melting pots for all these groups and people that are identifying with black male, black female, white male, this, that, Portlander, Oregonian, American. They're identifying hipster, cool kid. Oh, yes. They're identifying with these things and these artificial tribes in a world where they truly don't have their own tribe, out of some sort of sense of desire for self-preservation. In a world without a tribe, people are creating their own tribes, but not mindfully, more like in prison, where it's like, hey, you know, if I was forced to go to prison, the social pressure that exists would probably end up pushing me towards the Hispanics because of my olive complexion. And perhaps I would just take my chances on my own, take my chances with the gang rape, and I would fight back. And I would ask God and the angels to protect me as I unleash my warrior self on anyone trying to alter my free will, if in fact the universe decided that I need to be in prison. And thank God I've been able to live a life in freedom. But if I was forced to conform into the prison world society, someone like me would be forced in the direction of the Latinos. Believe it or not, because we would bear the closest resemblance in skin tone, which is completely bullshit. And so, in society today, in schools today, in these, again, modern cities, which are energy harvesting centers on this prison planet, where society is mirroring a prison, there are shoals of humans that are coming together not based on consciousness, but by the false perception that they are more like each other. That's why Portland, you'll see mostly one particular bloodline from one specific part of Europe that is taking over the whole city and completely rejecting people from its social circles that are not completely Irish-Scottish. And none of you that are Irish and Scottish, and I'm sure the majority of you might be, should take offense to me calling out aspects of the archonic system within our world that will dupe us into thinking that this is safe, that this is your group, that this is your people, and this people around you that don't look like you, that have a different shade of tone, you know, they're not of the same value. Their homes aren't even, and their neighborhoods aren't of the same value as, say, the one from this particular bloodline. When you see that type of, I mean, it's beyond racism. It's beyond, I mean, we won't even call it that. We'll just call it insanity. We will call it mental insanity. We will call it normal behavior that you would see in a insane asylum, a prison planet insane asylum. And so that is what I've seen. I've seen people make those decisions on what is valuable monetarily, in a mate, in a friend, who the person is that you hang out with. And I've seen how the world that we live in right now is not a world that's dealt with its own mind control. or illusions of separation. And it's a world in which when I say these things, someone that might identify with that programming might take offense and then put words in my mouth. And I want people, as you deal with that resistance, and I want you to analyze those thoughts that may come at you as you're hearing this podcast, especially those that are trying to demonize me and completely miss the point. Ask yourself, what is the point of making me the enemy and not looking at the core issue, the what is? The what is. I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor of an experience that when I lived in Portland, Oregon, that dense population center, that energy harvesting center, I had the experience that the very things that I did, the very videos that you can look that I produced on YouTube that first aired on Access TV, those very things are the things that began a process of this archonic interference in my life. Dealing with situations where large groups of people in a designated area all believed collectively at the same time that I had no value, that I was not worthy of allowing to park near their house or shower once in a while, or maybe have a cooked meal, or maybe have a hug, or have a sense of friendship, or have a sense of understanding to be invited to a party. Now, I'm not here to just spell out a bunch of pain, but I am not going to be here to hold back my pain. I will tell you what I believe to be the truth. That changed me forever. I was different prior to that. I still saw Portland in a different light. I had not yet come to terms with my own demons that had misled me, even about Portland. I had not yet come to terms with my own relinquishing of my own sovereignty as a male by simply wanting to have the love of a Portland female, by me elevating the status and value of a Portland female above females elsewhere by buying into the enlightened goddess bullshit. Maybe not goddess literally, but attractive, loving, healing, nurturing. I had always and have always held a very soft spot in my heart for women and the feminine in Portland. And when I went through the experience of even having, the one female that I love more than anyone else that had just been a friend in recent years, to say that we never even went out for dinner once. Not even once. In Portland. In the year that I was back. And to know that I had sent her, as recently as last week. There's a song you can Google. It's called I Keep Forgetting. I keep forgetting. We're not in love anymore. I keep forgetting. Things will never be the same again. And I am aware that what I am doing is I'm allowing aspects of myself to embark on exploring those chemical sensations going on in my body and my brain and my senses and my emotions and my heart beating as I listen to the song over and over and over again, and then found myself the next day also sending this to that person who gives me that takes me back, like to give a few comments without really responding to it. I'll listen to it later. It's funny how anything dealing with love just takes us back into a world that is nothing like the current world. And how strange it felt for me to just do that. I'm going to open up my heart to you and let you know that every lyric in this song, I Keep Forgetting, is how I feel about you. Because I still love and miss you. Being fully aware that she was flipped off, turned off to who I really am 7+ years ago. And here I am with my whatever implant, Dark Cupid, or whatever, completely acknowledging that I still have deeply embedded problems. Directing energy, attention, love, a desire to fight a standing army in order to protect primal, protective, sacred masculine. I love you, like family energy, completely unappreciated. This is not a normal realm. This is not paradise. This is not a collective shift in consciousness. And that friend of mine is not the same woman that I used to know, nor is my mother the same mother that I used to have. Something has shifted and is shifting really quick right now with the minds and consciousness of today's current female inhabitants of Earth. And it's frightening. And I'm hearing others echo the same thing. When you have such a society, when the divine feminine is removed from her intuition, and I personally say when the women don't even speak up against things happening to other women, that's kind of like my quote. I don't hear others saying that, but there's people that are getting it. When you have a society that's fallen so far from grace, from who it truly is, and when you have people living a counterfeit lie, and I'll add in, trying to convince people to worship them as goddesses without realizing or asking ourselves, are we really here to use our senses and beauty and strength to serve the archonic system, to be trapped in the flesh and confuse us for paradise? Or are we here to help make the world a better place through our actions, our deeds, by applying, whether it be our sexuality, our intelligence, our brawn, towards something positive, towards people that are positive? And in conclusion, I will say that instead of doing just that, the majority of men and women are following the dominant systems of control. And in doing so, they're playing roles in this. And many of them are choosing to play the role of would-be master, or thinking that they're the master of someone else, or thinking that there's something positive about receiving energy by taking from others in some way, stealing from others in some way. Hence, we have the ticket writers of today's world. We have the manipulators of today's world in relationships and marriages. We have true theft of that which does not belong to them taking place in our society. We have immorality and sexuality, people taking for their own orgasm, people taking for their own purpose, people chasing their own personal pleasure, and again, confusing that with spirituality, which seems to be an epidemic, especially with today's society and today's urban women. And in no way am I placing rural women on a pedestal over urban women. I'm actually a little bit shocked to see that there is a consistent overlay of certain, there are women that have no idea what off-the-grid living means that are 40 miles away from where I am right now. It's shocking. Simply from living in any type of a structure. And I don't know how metaphoric we can make of this, but they've been sheltered from a basic reality that there are people actually traveling here, good people, from all over the country. And that there's actually bad things happening out there in other cities that are big, that there's big things taking place with geopolitics. And that this is going to be where I'm at, Colorado, a part of the country that's ripe for growth. And I would say for the right type of people coming here, not the wrong. Instead, we kind of have this unnatural fear of outsiders, a general ignorance of what's happening in the larger cities, as I said, and a lot of people just don't even know that there's a term called off the grid. That means that you're living in freedom. Through some of the people that have lived out here, there's a negative connotation based on those that have, it's a stereotype based on those that have left garbage and those that have made meth and dumped their meth labs and been busted. So there's this fear sometimes of outsiders bringing danger, which I can understand. Having been very critical of a lot of the energy coming into Portland. And so in reality, it's not that, somebody can go out into a rural environment and meet more conscious people or necessarily become more conscious themselves. For me, and this really kind of concludes the point of this podcast, they're getting away from the energy harvesting center. It doesn't mean that their energies can't be harvested. It means they're getting away from a center to where there's obviously a lot of it at once. And when someone's exposed to other people in trauma, going through pain, having entities around them, it can really affect a human being to the point where they're sad and depressed because they're picking up on the vibes of everything around them. that sadness can be a trigger event that can trigger a lot of events. Something as simple as, okay, this is a lot of pain I'm going through. I'm feeling a lot of stuff. Hey, I think I'm gonna go drink tonight. I really need a drink. Hey, you know what? I really need to smoke even more weed than what I consider to be normal. Hey, you know what? I really need to get another pack of cigarettes. Hey, it's American Spirits. It's not that bad. That's been my thinking for years. Struggling on and off with smoking, especially in urban environments. But even in rural environments where I'm having difficulty being in my own thoughts. Well, right now I'm working through that process, and I'm not smoking. And I'm working on being in my emotions and it being in my thoughts and using this podcast series to share things that I've never shared before until now. Sure, I'm going to lose some friends. Some people are never going to talk to me again, and they're going to be convinced that I'm working with black magic. And other people are going to respect what I'm doing. And those are the real women that I want as friends in my life, by the way, are ones that accept me for who I am, those that will actually listen to the podcast series without being judgmental, to actually understand where I'm coming from. And those and only those women would I consider friends. Many of the rest that have called themselves friends have shown themselves to only be interested in me when I am feeding them energetically, when I am placing my attention on them, or when I'm letting them hurt me. Speaking in terms of the only real supporter of me in the last year, it was an emotional abusive relationship of feeding me the energy that I needed to get out of Portland, being the money, and then the emotional terrorism, as if this person cared about me living in an RV this winter, which obviously looks like it's in my stars now, and using emotional terrorism to kind of talk to me like, don't you understand that I want to be your sugar mama, and I really want to make these decisions for you. I really want you to be doing this with the help. So I got to experience that one of the few females in my life that showed any concern whatsoever was only doing so to manipulate my own emotions. Meanwhile, having perceptions in her own mind that somehow I was angry with her for helping me, thus sending a barrage of messages which look like something that a mind control victim would send as opposed to a regular human being. I mean, the whole thing's just been really shocking and has caused me to really evaluate what is going on with human relationships and the Archons, and to discuss this from a perspective that hopefully women can understand and appreciate, that whatever is going on with today's man and woman is very different than our natural state, and it is evidence of some sort of hijack. And so criticism of this behavior, be it men or women, in neither case will be anti-man or woman. I think we need to access our feminine and masculine sides and not confuse this with homosexuality. But understand that as a heterosexual male, I'm very comfortable with my feminine and masculine sides. And I know that I'm living in a society where I've met women that have tried to crush my own feminine side. I know this. I know what that's like. To have a woman look you in the eyes and say, all that really matters is you impressing me with something, not your little attempt here to stop the New World Order, little man. I know what it's like to be told repeatedly by women, you have no value based on what you're doing. The whole thing's really weird and I don't want nothing to do with it. And to watch them act like they're fucking being controlled by remote control. Their thoughts, their feelings, their very disgust with me, their very distrust of me, their very assumption that I'm not who I say I am. That has educated me. And nobody can take that away from me. Nobody could say, Alex, you're a liar. All this is... No, I know what it's like to see the majority of the females on the planet only contact me when they want to abuse my energy or direct my attention, or to be somehow manipulative, and actually watch some women throughout time marry jerks for guys, or guys that are actually doing nothing for society simply because they have a home or a hut, or because they got linked up with that person through children. There is not a renaissance taking place where good men are being recognized. And so women need to know we are going into the dark ages, and this is one of the core reasons why. Because when good men are needed, they won't be around, because some of us are being forced incrementally out of society. Okay, the men that are going to go along with the system and go along with the mind control. The ones that are going to give up their mind, the men that are not going to be the actual protectors, the guys that are not spending their days and weeks trying to track this stuff. Those of us that are being forced into society, and out of your cities, will not be around to protect you, because we're going to be in our own little world trying to protect ourselves, digging an underground hole in the earth. Regardless of all my actions and all my deeds and all that I've done or tried to do for Portland or anybody else, it's all led down to me trying to dig a hole in the ground in preparation for something on land I don't even know, in land that's not even in my name. I'm literally in the middle of what some people think is nowhere, with a shovel and some solar panels and an internet connection, speaking to you now after 35 years of life, with no family and no support. And the only people that said they supported me only trying to play vampire games with me to fuck with my head about my own value. That's the shit I just walked out of. So nobody can tell me that what we're seeing today with today's women and today's society and today's men, as if you see actual men in my corner. You'll see the occasional negative comment every now and then when I'm going off the grid, as if they're just like programmed, like by something they don't even understand, and just type in shit into the YouTube comment section that shows that they're a fucking jackass. Okay, I'm getting upset. Now, we will talk about meditation soon, in brief. And instead of it being a guided meditation, it's going to be a guided contemplation. And so you can be listening to the things that I'm going to say in a big city, in a high rise, and just contemplate the things that I'm talking about in regards to energy. And so living a healthier lifestyle can lead to things like, of course, incorporating breathing, can lead to your ability to ground yourself in an easier manner when you're around ungrounded people. And many of you are, in a way, you could say that you're stuck in the city, that maybe you don't have the financial means to leave right now, and it seems the universe is working against you. Maybe you've tried to leave the city and for some reason your car blows up. I think we need to explore what stops us sometimes from leaving these cities. But I don't want anyone to feel bad for where you are. And I've just reminded you that I've got nothing where I am, and I'm just doing this with my will alone, without any family in my corner, with the very people that I thought were supporting me at a moment where they think they can hurt me the most, playing games with me, trauma-based mind control. So just like before, I'm noticing the pattern. The very people that you think are there to support you, the second you end up being close to freedom or far off the grid, it's like weird energy comes in to almost try to punish me for my freedom-based lifestyle. It's reflective in the lack of support. It's reflective in the lack of comments on YouTube. Go back a year to me in Portland screaming about my pain. There's people commenting. There's people interacting. Now that I'm like trying to flip a 180 and I'm trying to go deep into what is the core of our enslavement and where is it coming from and how to be self-responsible. It's like now things have just gotten really quiet with you guys. And I'm just trying to bask in it and go, this is educating. I don't mean all of you, but I mean, I'm starting to realize I'm hitting on a nerve here. A lot of things that I've been looking at for years, it's like a thought coming to completion. And so that is the reason why, while I'm off the grid, that I'm doing this Archon podcast series. I don't have to deal with such severe energy counterattack after doing the podcast. I don't have to deal with someone's personality around me shifting and saying, I'm no longer valuable. What I do know is, I believe to the best of my ability, I've created a set of circumstances to where anybody can reject me at any time and it isn't going to make a dent into my life or my sovereignty. And that's why I'm off the grid. Okay? Something big would have to happen, and I don't want that big thing to happen. So I will continue to visualize the best thing happening. And my current experience here on the land continuing to be a safe one for me that will allow me to continue to go deeper into these thoughts. As I speak into this iPhone that's only being used for a voice memo, I do not use a cell phone. I am using solar power, and I have more power than I've ever had before in terms of electricity, because I have a new gauge wiring on my solar panels. I have all the water that I need. I have all the food that I need. I have a rooster that came by for friendship and protection. So I'm sharing some water, and I'm sharing a little bit of food, some organic steel-cut oats with this rooster. I stare out through a window, and I don't see anybody for miles. I'm just looking at sagebrush. And I walk around for hours in the sun with my shirt off, in between doing podcasts and compressing the podcasts. And I have a part-time job. I work several hours a day for amtvmedia.com. Part-time job posting news, residual income that I really need. And I want to see myself, this YouTube channel, becoming more independent. And what would be awesome is to see people contributing again to this YouTube channel, if you so desire. And the best way to do that is $5 to $20 a month, automatic reoccurring donation through PayPal. And my PayPal ID is alex_answery@hotmail.com. I stopped calling for donations in the last year. One particular person decided that they would be the sole donor. And as I have been discussing, there has been a lot of mind control and emotional manipulation through assuming that one particular person would help me accomplish a life goal. That life goal being purchasing land that would be in my name that I would be able to build a home on. So my future is uncertain, but I have chosen to no longer allow the Archons to control me through fear concerning survival and who might be there for me and whether I'll end up without, fuel or things of that nature. I cannot allow myself to be controlled by my own fear any longer. It was actually aspects of my own fear of being unsuccessful that has delayed me in actually getting to the San Luis Valley. I thought I would take an easier route by going and staying with a woman in Trinidad who ended up being a very more manipulative person than before, who did not say the honest truth about her lack of insurance when I was using her car to go to the store. Thus, I got a ticket for driving her car without insurance to the store, $650. And I was left with a feeling of it would have been better if I had not gone to stay with this woman and stay under her roof, even though I paid over half the rent for a couple months. I thought things would be easier for me to be back in the city and paying cheap rent and growing a garden full of quinoa. As I embraced the help and financial support from what seemed to be a very dedicated supporter and genuine loving human being. And what I came to find out is my energy was harvested from this experience. Even some of the resources were wasted through the decision to even be in Trinidad. That I had spent many times trying to please this donor via email by communicating hundreds to what seems to be thousands of emails as to my whereabouts and what I intended to do. And now I realize the whole thing was a lie. The whole thing was a manipulation. And the whole thing stinks of archonic influence that came through the form of a few females that acted like they wanted to help, that seemed to create a disturbance. At the same time, I'm grateful for the help that got me out of Portland into this RV. But I can still recognize the assault on one's character, the disturbance, and the attempt to get inside my head. In addition, the only other woman that's truly reached out, or she was trying to via email, track me down through some form of means, maybe luck, maybe remote viewing, to an Alamosa Safeway, who then continued to get pushy as to how I can help her get out to where I am within a few miles. Typically, women don't come out here, and so they may think that this is the place for them, but this is really about this person trying to come near me. And I told this person multiple times, I'm flying solo. That's not going to happen, especially not with someone who uses satanic or Baphomet emblems on her Facebook page, who doesn't use her real name, who doesn't use her real face, who uses an image of the Grim Reaper or the Four Horsemen as depicted in the Lord of Rings. There was a bunch of this weird shit. I know some of you are going, what the fuck is Alex talking about? Yes, you could even say this reflects on me, that I've even attracted this type of parasitic female energy, but it's real. I have attracted witches. I have attracted people that have dabbled in black magic, that have just tried to find out where I am. And I don't know what this is about. What this is about with obsession with my physical location. But I've noticed this pattern with several people. That's why I'm ignoring all people trying to find out where I am and connect with me, because it's coming at a time where it's highly suspicious. So if you're wondering why I'm not getting back to you, trying to find out where I am, maybe you might want to look a little closer at some of the circumstances that I've had to deal with. And so this person that uses the black magic emblems and the pentagram and the upside down star sends me an email saying, you don't own the San Luis Valley. As if like I'm one of these psychotic motherfuckers that thinks I don't own anything out here. I'm surviving on my own. I'm saying, stay the fuck away from me. You get your own land and do your own research on how to buy your land. This conversation's over. And so I really need to share with the YouTube audience in this and make this clear, that nearly all of the female energy, with maybe exception for one, but nearly all of the supposed friendly female energy that's come in has been sabotage, with some of it trying to track down where I am. And when the world begins to change, and if the world actually starts to become a more conscious place, the good deeds that I have done will bring forth people that are genuine. Women that will actually write letters with substance, not just a few statements trying to get me to maybe chase them via email. People that are genuine, people that show what they actually look like, people that don't hide behind fake profiles, people that actually are genuine and they actually understand you. Other than that, there are women that come and go, that go tee, and they'll send a message seeing if, like honey, I go into it so we can establish communication. I don't do that. I will never chase any woman at all that approaches me as a stranger. Someone has to somehow come to terms with the depths of what I've said, otherwise there's going to be a conflict. And I'm not here to be played anymore by these archonic energies. And they will always come at me through the form that I desire, and that's a loving female, a nurturer, a healer. I'm a gullible dupe. I'm the first dude to fall in love because I've never had love and I've never been loved. And so it's constantly coming at me to deceive me. This is love, this is motherly, this is that, when in reality it's something that is constantly trying to torture me, that is using those females as tools. And so, in conclusion, many cities have become energy harvesting centers. And one of the reasons why is because we're seeking healing and we're seeking love from sources outside of ourselves. We're seeking other things outside of ourselves. And we're pouring our energy into things that we really don't own. So it is a cycle of slavery. And slavery is what the Archons feed on. Archon meaning ruler. In the world of freedom and living off the grid and spending more time in silence and being aware of less humans and not chasing other humans based on their sexuality, i.e. men chasing women blindly. By allowing ourselves to be alone, by allowing ourselves to access our own higher consciousness, we are doing the best thing that we can for ourselves. There's nothing to fear. There's no pain in the loneliness. There is only the greatest potential for us to realize our greatest assets to this world and ourselves. With that, I've certainly said a lot. I want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next podcast.